They swore you would never make it. That's the truth. They whispered it. They laughed about it. They even built little stories around your supposed downfall. But now, the same mouths that mocked you are biting their tongues. The silence is heavy. It's the kind of silence that follows an explosion. After the dust settles, after the smoke clears, when the ones who doubted are left staring at the ruins of their own predictions. Because you did it, and you didn't just do it. You pulled it off in a way that shattered every lie they told about you. People are confused right now. That's the simplest way to put it. They can't wrap their heads around how you, the one they underestimated, just flipped the entire script without their permission. One moment, you were forgettable, average, or the quiet one. The next moment, you've stepped into a light so powerful they can't look away. They're not celebrating you. They're not clapping. They're investigating, studying, scrambling for answers. Your name is floating in group chats. Your pictures are being sent around. Your moves are being stalked like evidence in a case file. Your life has turned into a mystery they can't solve, and the obsession is eating them alive. And if this message is already hitting deep, chosen ones, hit that like button and subscribe. That's how you give this voice more power, not just for you, but for every chosen one standing up in silence. That's how you pay this message back and keep this truth echoing. Now, let's get real. They're not asking how are you? They're asking, how did they pull this off? That's the question haunting them. You didn't follow their instructions. You didn't crawl for validation. You didn't trade your soul for shortcuts. You simply disappeared into the grind, into the shadows, into the hard work and private tears. And then you reappeared at the finish line, crown on your head, victory in your hand. That crown they said you'd never touch? You're wearing it now, and it burns their eyes to see it. Here's the fact that keeps them up at night. Most people can't figure you out because they've never figured themselves out. They've been lost in illusions, playing games for clout, chasing trends, copying each other just to survive. Meanwhile, you were quietly building from truth, from pain, from depth. They don't know what that feels like. They don't know what it costs to sacrifice sleep, to cut off toxic voices, to walk away from comfort just to stand on your own. They don't know what it means to bet everything on yourself when no one is betting on you. That's why they stare at you like you're impossible, because to them, you are. And what makes this so much sweeter? The same ones who treated you like background noise now move like detectives trying to catch clues in your silence. They Google you, they stalk your socials, they replay conversations in their head like maybe they missed something. They tell others, I always knew they had potential, but you remember the smirks, the sarcasm, the times they counted you out. You know the truth. They didn't believe in you. They only believe now because they can't deny what's right in front of them. The most terrifying power in the world is a person who was underestimated, undetected, and then undeniable. That's you, and that's why they're losing their grip. They thought you would always be the one watching from the sidelines, clapping for their fake victories. Instead, you wrote your own story, and it wasn't a story anyone expected. That's why their faces look blank, like glitching robots, trying to process a reality they swore would never exist. Think back to the history books. Every revolution, every breakthrough, every victory that shocked the world, it always came from the person no one believed in, from the mind they laughed at, from the voice they tried to silence. You stand in that same category now. You've become proof that quiet strength beats loud lies, that steady work beats fast tricks, that faith in yourself beats the world's rejection. And when the dust cleared, you weren't just standing. You were standing taller, brighter, stronger. This isn't just about success. This is about a shift, a closure, a victory that rewrote the rules they built to keep you down. You didn't just climb their ladder, you kicked it down and built your own. You're not part of their game anymore. You are the blueprint. You are the question they can't answer, the problem they can't solve, the storm they didn't prepare for. And now, every move you make rattles the ground beneath their feet. So buckle up, chosen ones, because in this video, we're going to pull apart the reasons they're obsessing, the things you've done that they can't replicate, and the truth behind why your rise feels like their collapse. You didn't just win, you changed the entire game. And now, they're scrambling to decode what they were too arrogant to respect. And listen closely, chosen one, you already know people are trying to crack your code, staring from the shadows, wondering how you pulled all of this off. But this message is for you, not for them. If you're ready to step into the truth of why their eyes can't look away, then stay with me. Drop the number 777 in the comments if you're ready to unlock what they'll never understand. Because the deeper we go, the clearer it becomes. Their confusion is your confirmation. And if you're really chosen, you'll feel it in your chest, that pull to stay locked in until the very end. So let's dive into this step by step. And trust me, by the time we're finished, you'll see exactly why their obsession is proof that you already won. Number 1. They're obsessed because your rise shattered their playbook. The cruelest revenge isn't shouting back at your enemies. It's living in such a way that their entire rulebook looks like a bad joke. They can't stop staring at you, not because they love you, not because they're proud, but because your existence is wrecking the script they swore was unshakable. You weren't supposed to be here, not in this room, not in this position, not carrying this kind of glow without their approval. You weren't supposed to be seen, and now you can't be ignored. That's why their eyes follow you like you're a riddle they'll never solve. The truth is brutal. They had a formula, a crooked blueprint that worked for them in a shallow world. Fake the smile, shake the right hands, step on whoever's beneath you, bend the truth until it looks good enough for applause. That was the game. And you were never supposed to win because you didn't play it. You didn't beg. You didn't crawl. You didn't fold yourself into their small boxes. You walked around their stage without ever buying a ticket. And somehow, you still ended up in the spotlight. That's what's burning them alive right now. Think about it. How many times did they dismiss you? How many times did they roll their eyes when you said less but meant more? They thought silence meant weakness. They thought staying low meant defeat. They thought ignoring the circus meant you weren't even in the tent. And yet, here you are, not just in the game, but rewriting the scoreboard. They study you now like failed scientists staring at a result that disproves their entire theory. They whisper, how did they pull it off? Who gave them that chance? What did we miss? But the answer isn't in their questions. It's in the very arrogance that blinded them to begin with. Here's the dagger they can't pull out. Your success wasn't supposed to exist in their system. You weren't backed by a machine. You didn't plaster your life in fake validation. You didn't sell yourself for temporary applause. You weren't even in the rooms they thought were essential. And still, you emerged standing taller than all their noise. That's why they scroll through your life like detectives reviewing evidence. That's why they obsess over your timeline, replaying your story as if a clue might reveal itself. But there is no clue. There is no shortcut, because you didn't take one. You were supposed to fail. You were supposed to stay in the shadows. You were supposed to stay the quiet one, clapping for their hollow victories. But your refusal to collapse became the very thing they couldn't predict. And now, your presence exposes their fraud. Your calm exposes their panic. Your truth exposes their illusion. You are living proof that authenticity doesn't just survive. it wins. And nothing terrifies a liar more than a person who doesn't need lies to shine. Look at the irony. They spent years building masks, performing for approval, and stretching themselves thin for a spotlight that fades with every season. Meanwhile, you kept it real. You grew in silence. You bled in silence. You rebuilt in silence. And when you finally stepped forward, it wasn't for clout. It was because you had become undeniable. That's why they're restless. That's why their jealousy tastes like venom in their own mouths. They're not angry that you succeeded. They're angry because you succeeded without betraying yourself. Here's a question you might ask yourself. Why are they so obsessed if my win doesn't affect them? Because deep down, your win does affect them. It exposes them. It forces them to admit that maybe they did it all wrong. That maybe the shortcuts, the manipulation, the fake networking, none of it was real power. They hate you because your life is a living contradiction to the story they sold themselves. And every time you breathe freely, every time you move without begging for permission, every time you rise another step, it reminds them of their own cages. Remember this, the most dangerous person in the world is the one who wasn't supposed to rise, the one who wasn't counted, the one who didn't play the game, and yet still broke through. That's you. You are the loophole in their system, the glitch in their matrix, the walking evidence that their formulas are useless when a person decides to walk in truth. And truth, chosen one, is the one thing they cannot fake. So when they look at you now like a puzzle, don't mistake it for curiosity. It's fear. It's the silent panic of people who realize they never had as much power as they thought. They're replaying your story, not because they want to celebrate it, but because it's the mirror they can't escape. Your victory is the crack in their wall, the leak in their dam, the one fracture that makes the whole structure collapse. They don't want to solve you. They want to deny you, but it's too late. You're standing here. You're undeniable. And if you ever wonder why they watch so closely, here's the truth. They're hoping to find the blueprint you used, but they'll never find it, because you didn't play by one. You became it, and that, chosen one, is why their study will never end, and why your rise has already rewritten the entire game. Number 2. You rose from the ashes while they choked on the smoke. Pain is the exam life gives you before it hands you the degree of wisdom. Here's the truth that terrifies them. You didn't escape pain. You endured it. You let it educate you while they let it destroy them. That's the part they'll never admit out loud. They went through heartbreaks, betrayals, and disappointments too, but instead of turning that fire into fuel, they let it burn them hollow. You didn't. You took that same fire and forged it into armor. That's why they can't figure you out. Most people get hurt and decide the world owes them something. They drown in bitterness, gossip, and excuses. They stay stuck, replaying the betrayal like a movie on repeat, still angry at ghosts who moved on years ago. But you refused to rot in the same story. You didn't let heartbreak make you hateful. You didn't let betrayal make you distrustful. You didn't let suffering make you cynical. Instead, you asked yourself, what is this trying to teach me? What can I gain from this pain? That question became your weapon while they clung to their wounds like trophies. Some people drink poison, hoping it'll kill their enemies. Others drink truth, even when it burns going down. That's the difference between them and you. Imagine this. Two people walk through the same storm. One curses the rain, stands frozen, and lets the thunder break their spirit. The other tightens their coat, learns the rhythm of the downpour, and uses the storm as training. Which one do you think emerges stronger? That was you. You didn't run from the storm. You studied it. You didn't fight the dark. You adapted to it. That's why, while they choke on the smoke of their own bitterness, you rose clean from the ashes. And don't think they haven't noticed. They see the glow on your face, the peace in your eyes, the calm in your walk. It confuses them because they know the kind of battles you faced. They know what you lost, what you endured, what you survived. By their logic, you should be bitter, cold, broken. Instead, you're radiant. Instead, you're resilient. Instead, you've turned scars into scripture that guides you through life. That's why they whisper, "How are they still standing? How are they still smiling? How are they still winning?" But let's flip the question. Why aren't they standing? Why aren't they glowing? The answer is simple, because they refused to let the pain teach them. They wanted shortcuts, not surgery. They wanted comfort, not confrontation. Pain knocked on their door, and instead of letting it in as a teacher, they let it squat like a parasite. That's why they're still bitter 5 years later about things they could have healed from. They drank resentment like it was wine, while you swallowed truth like medicine. And medicine heals, even when it hurts. The wound is where the light enters you, but only if you stop covering it with pride. Picture this. Someone steps on glass. Instead of removing it, they leave it there, limping, bleeding, complaining, pointing fingers. Over time, the infection spreads. That's how most people handle betrayal, rejection, or heartbreak. They never pull the glass out. They never face the pain. They just limp through life, bitter and defensive. But you pulled the glass out. You sat with the sting, cleaned the wound, let it scar, and turned that scar into strength. That's why you walk differently now. That's why you shine. That's why they stare. And yes, chosen one, let's address the unspoken question. Why me? Why did I have to go through all that pain in the first place? Because you were being sharpened. Because your path was never about avoiding storms, but about learning how to master them. Because your glow needed fire, not comfort. Look around. The strongest souls you've ever admired weren't built in easy places. They were built in fire. You're part of that lineage now. And that truth unsettles your enemies. Because when they look at you, they see the evidence that their excuses mean nothing. They see what happens when someone refuses to let pain define them, and it makes their bitterness taste worse. They want to believe you cheated, that you had some secret advantage, but deep down, they know the only difference is that you faced the pain while they hid from it. What breaks others built you. What poisoned them purified you. Imagine a blacksmith with 2 pieces of metal. He puts both in the fire. One cracks under the heat, breaks, and becomes useless. The other absorbs the fire, grows stronger, and transforms into a sword. That sword is you. The cracked piece is them. Same fire, different outcome. That's the story they can't process, and that's why they obsess over you like a puzzle. They see your smile, but they don't see the nights you cried until your chest ached. They see your wins, but not the countless days you carried yourself through pain with no applause. They see your peace, but not the war it took to earn it. They want the glow, but not the grind. They want the wisdom, but not the wounds. And here's the cruel irony. They'll never get it because they refuse to learn from what life already handed them. So don't you dare downplay your strength. Don't you dare shrink your story. Every scar you carry is a receipt that you chose growth over bitterness, wisdom over resentment, love over hate. That's why you stand out in a world addicted to victimhood. That's why your enemies glare at you like you're guilty of something. Because you are guilty. Guilty of surviving what was designed to break you and daring to shine anyway. Your glow isn't luck, it's the side effect of pain properly digested. And now, every time they see you, it's not just jealousy, it's a reminder that they could have been more but chose less. that they could have healed but chose hate, that they could have built but chose to break. And you, chosen one, will forever be the evidence that pain doesn't define you. Your response to it does. So the next time they stare, don't shrink. Let them look. Let them choke on their questions, because the truth is simple. They let pain turn them bitter, but you let pain turn you better, and that's why you'll always rise while they stay stuck. Number 3. Silence wasn't weakness, it was the forge of your power. Silence is not the absence of progress, it is the womb where transformation takes place. They thought your quiet meant you were finished. They thought your low profile meant you had nothing to offer. They mistook your absence from their spotlight as proof that you were irrelevant. But the truth cuts deeper. Your silence was strategy. You weren't hiding because you were lost. You weren't quiet because you were weak. You were quiet because you were being processed, shaped, stripped, sharpened. Imagine a seed buried in the soil. To the naked eye, it looks like nothing is happening, just dirt, just silence. But beneath the surface, roots are growing, foundations are forming, a future is being written. That was you. While they scrolled, posted, and performed for approval, you were in the dirt doing unseen work. And now that you've broken through the surface, they stare like it happened overnight. But you know the truth. It took years underground. They mocked your silence because they couldn't hear the thunder building inside you. Ask yourself, why does silence bother people so much? Because silence threatens their illusions. They think visibility equals progress. They think noise equals relevance. They can't fathom the idea that you were becoming solid, not just visible. They wanted to measure you by updates, by likes, by appearances, but you refused to give them access to your process. And that, chosen one, is why they're scrambling now. Imagine a sculptor working behind closed doors. Days, months, years go by, and no one sees the chisel. Then one day, the doors open and the masterpiece is unveiled. People gasp, saying, "Where did this come from? That's you." They didn't see the chisel. They didn't see the nights of self-reflection, the battles with your demons, the stripping away of false attachments. They didn't see the surgery life performed on you in silence. They only see the final form, and it terrifies them. You weren't absent. You were in alignment. Now they replay everything. They wonder how they missed it. They accuse you of skipping steps, but you skipped nothing. You simply refused to broadcast a process that wasn't theirs to witness. And now that your season has arrived, the echo of everything you built in private is so loud they can't ignore it. Your silence was never weakness. It was the forge of your power. Number 4. You didn't win by tricks. You survived what should have killed you. Endurance isn't glamorous, but it's the graveyard where most of your enemies quit. They want to frame your success as some clever plan, some stroke of luck, some hidden advantage. But let's tear the mask off that lie. You didn't pull this off. You endured until it finally manifested. That's the truth. You're standing here not because you had it easy, but because you refused to collapse when life kept swinging. They didn't see the nights you were cracked wide open. They didn't see the mornings when getting out of bed felt like moving mountains. They didn't see the rejection letters, the heartbreaks, the betrayals, the quiet rooms where you whispered to yourself, "Just hold on a little longer." They weren't there when you broke down over and over, yet somehow kept standing back up. And that's why your presence unsettles them. Because you are proof that endurance beats everything. People want your outcome, but they couldn't stomach your process. Imagine this. 2 runners start a race. One sprints hard, burns out fast, and collapses halfway. The other stumbles, falls, crawls, but keeps moving inch by inch. Guess which one crosses the finish line? That was you. You weren't the fastest, you weren't the flashiest, but you endured, you refused to stay down. That's why you're here now, and that's why they study you like a phenomenon. They ask, how did you do it? But let's be honest, they don't really want the answer. Because the answer isn't glamorous. It's not some clean formula. It's blood, it's sweat, it's tears. It's breaking 1,000 times and still refusing to stay broken. And deep down, they know they wouldn't have lasted. The real miracle isn't what you built. It's that you're still here. Your glow isn't a product of easy wins. It's the aftershock of surviving storms meant to bury you. Your wisdom isn't from books. It's carved from scars. Your presence isn't the result of luck. It's the reward of not quitting when everything screamed to give up. They wanted you to disappear, but you endured until the universe itself had to honor your persistence. So when they clap now, understand this. They're clapping for the surface. They'll never understand the underground war you fought just to still be alive, breathing and unbroken. That's the part of your story they'll never grasp. And the part that makes you unstoppable. Number 5, you got in because you aligned, not because you begged. Approval is rented, but alignment is owned forever. There was a time you bent yourself out of shape just to be tolerated. You lowered your voice so they wouldn't feel small. You shrank your light so they wouldn't feel threatened. You begged for crumbs at tables that weren't even worthy of your presence. You thought access required approval, that success depended on being liked. But eventually, you got tired. Tired of molding yourself into something digestible for people choking on their own insecurities. Tired of explaining your worth to people committed to misunderstanding it. That's when everything shifted. You stopped asking for a seat, and suddenly the right doors opened, not because you forced them, but because you let go of the wrong ones. That's the part they can't stand. They still think life is about clout, handshakes, and applause. Meanwhile, you unlocked the one thing they can't fake: alignment. Imagine chasing keys to doors that were never meant for you, only to realize the real doors open when you stop running and start standing. They don't understand why you move differently now. They see you walking in rooms they swore were closed, commanding respect you never demanded. But it wasn't magic, it wasn't luck, it was release. The moment you stopped craving their nod, you became magnetic. Alignment glows differently. It's not loud, but it's undeniable. And here's the truth they can't digest. Your power came the second you stopped needing them. While they auditioned daily for attention, you already signed a lifelong contract with your purpose. While they compromised their integrity to belong, you walked away and became untouchable. They ask, how did this happen so fast? But the answer is simple. You stopped begging, and life stopped delaying. The same people who denied you are now forced to watch doors open for you they'll never enter. The rooms you once chased, you outgrew them. The people who rejected you, replaced by those who recognize you. And now the irony cuts deep. You became more magnetic the moment you stopped seeking approval. They're still auditioning for acceptance, but you're already moving in authority. That's why they can't figure you out. That's why their confusion is your confirmation. Number 6. You won because you played the game they couldn't see. Manipulation can win a round, but universal law always wins the war. They mocked you. They laughed at your patience, your discipline, your silence. They called you naive for not scheming, for not faking, for not clawing your way into their circles. What they never realized is that while they were busy performing for the visible, you were mastering the invisible. They were learning tricks, you were learning laws. They thought power came from clout and connections, but you were tapping into something that can't be bought, bent, or bribed. Imagine two people planting seeds. One digs them up every day to show others. The other waters in silence, trusting the unseen roots. Guess who ends up with the forest? That was you. They lived for optics. You lived for order. They mastered shortcuts. You mastered surrender. And now the harvest is here, and it doesn't make sense to them because they never respected the soil. They ask themselves, how did you keep rising without playing dirty? Because you understood a truth they ignored. Energy doesn't lie. Intention carries weight. Timing is sacred, and no amount of manipulation can override the laws of alignment. That's why they're stuck in cycles, repeating the same games, while you keep elevating without forcing it. Noise makes a scene. Alignment makes a legacy. They don't get how you stayed calm when they rushed, how you rested when they scrambled, how you kept glowing without being plugged into their gossip networks. To them, that looked like weakness, but weakness doesn't endure. What you carried was deeper, a knowing, a flow, an authority they couldn't copy. You didn't win because you were louder. You won because you were rooted. And here's the cruel irony. They still believe they're in control. They still chase visibility, still polish their masks, still measure progress in followers and favors. But what they don't understand is that the unseen always outranks the seen. Their performance bought them attention. Your integrity bought you access. Their noise made them noticed for a moment. Your alignment made you undeniable for life. So when they look confused at your rise, let them, because the truth is simple. You weren't playing their game. You mastered the one they never even knew existed. Number 7. They're crumbling because your truth made their lies collapse. The loudest clapback is living a life that proves their entire performance was pointless. They're not panicking because you called them out. You didn't expose their lies, drag their names, or clap back in public. You didn't need to. Your life itself became the mirror they've been running from for years. And mirrors don't lie. Your authenticity reflects back every mask they ever wore, every false smile they practiced, every performance they staged just to look powerful. And that's why they panic. Imagine a stage actor who forgets their lines mid-performance, and then the spotlight turns on someone in the audience who never needed a script in the first place. That's you. They built their whole identity on performance, while you built yours on substance. Now, just by existing, you expose how hollow their show really is. They thought power came from optics, strategic friendships, curated posts, rehearsed personas. But your presence proves it's possible to rise without faking, to succeed without stepping on people, to glow without gossip. That truth alone is their undoing. Because if you can win while staying real, it means their cruelty, their scheming, their manipulation was never necessary. And admitting that would break the fragile empire they built. Your joy without bitterness wrecks them. Your confidence without arrogance exposes them. Ask yourself, why does your peace make them so angry? Because it shows them peace can't be bought. Because it reveals that attention isn't respect. Because your glow makes their masks look like costumes at a cheap carnival. And once the mask slips, the audience stops clapping. That's what's happening to them now. Their image no longer inspires, it embarrasses. So they scramble. They downplay your wins. They whisper, "It's just luck." They search for cracks in your armor, hoping to find something that makes them feel better about their own hollowness. But deep down, they know the truth. You didn't beat them at their game. You proved their game was fake. And here's the cruel irony. They want to hate you, but they also want what you have. Not the money, not the spotlight. What they crave is the one thing they can't fake: peace. The kind that isn't purchased, the kind that isn't performative, the kind that only comes from being real. And that's why they panic, because your truth will always be their undoing. Number 8. You didn't beat them. You survived what was meant to bury you. Victory isn't about outshining your enemies. It's about outlasting their weapons until they collapse under their own failure. You didn't rise because you were louder, richer, or more connected. You rose because you survived what was supposed to finish you. They came at you with everything in their arsenal: gossip whispered like poison, rejection designed to crush your spirit, sabotage hidden in fake smiles, setups masked as opportunities. You were supposed to fold. You were supposed to stay silent, invisible, broken. But instead, you became the one thing they never planned for: unbreakable. Imagine throwing stones at someone so long you expect them to bleed, only to look up years later and realize they built a castle with the rubble you gave them. That's you. Every stone, every betrayal, every lie they crafted became material for your foundation. They thought the pain would end you, but it built you. They thought the silence would erase you, but it refined you. And now your glow is the haunting evidence that their weapons failed. They don't just hate your success. What really disturbs them is that you succeeded after they actively tried to stop you. Some of them cheered for your downfall in secret. Some of them plotted behind your back while smiling in your face. Some of them celebrated when you hit the ground, convinced you'd never rise again. And yet, here you are, walking proof that no amount of sabotage can suffocate purpose. Resilience is the currency they can't counterfeit. Ask yourself, why are they panicking now? Because endurance wasn't part of their calculation. They assumed cruelty was enough to destroy you. They underestimated the fire inside you that no gossip, no smear campaign, no rejection could extinguish. You weren't fueled by ego like they were. You were fueled by something deeper, purpose, and purpose doesn't quit. While they were mocking, you were sharpening. While they were plotting, you were growing. While they were blocking doors, life was training you to walk through walls. You didn't outperform them. You didn't have to. You outlasted their weapons. That's why they're crumbling while you're shining. Because in their world, cruelty is power. But in yours, resilience is currency. And you've become wealthy beyond their reach. Number 9, you broke their code, and that makes you untouchable. The most dangerous person in the room is the one who doesn't react the way you predicted. They can't figure you out because you escaped the algorithm of normality. Most people run on scripts, predictable patterns, easy triggers, say the right thing, pull the right string, and people dance like puppets. But you cut the strings. That's why they're unsettled. You're not a program they can hack. You're a system they can't access. They expected you to chase when ghosted, to clap back when shaded, to beg for closure when disrespected. That's how the game usually works. Push a button, watch the reaction, but you stopped playing. You don't clap back. You rise. You don't chase. You detach. You don't post for attention. You move in silence. You don't prove your worth. You embody it. And that alone makes you unpredictable, because the entire playbook they built depends on control. Imagine trying to play chess with someone who picked up the board and walked away. That's you. They can't predict your next move because you're not on their board anymore. While they scheme and calculate, you observe. While they stir drama, you stay still. While they flex for attention, you glow without an audience. They're addicted to reaction, and your calm leaves them starving. Ask yourself, why does unpredictability scare them so much? Because unpredictability means they can't manipulate you. They can't bait you into battles, can't guilt you into submission, can't use silence as a weapon against you. You've healed past the wounds they counted on exploiting. You no longer respond from insecurity. You respond from wisdom. And wisdom is unreadable to fools. You're not a glitch in their matrix. You're proof the matrix was never real. They're spiraling because the scripts they used on everyone else don't work on you. Withdraw affection and you don't beg. Spread lies and you don't defend. Withhold apologies and you don't wait. That's terrifying for them because their entire sense of power depends on predictable prey. You stopped being prey the day you chose healing over games. Now, you move with calm that can't be shaken, with strength that can't be baited. They can't trace you, they can't predict you, and they sure can't break you. Because once you escaped their algorithm, you became the one thing manipulators fear most. Free. Number 10. You won because you cut loose what was killing you. Not everything that shares your blood deserves your future. Your victory wasn't just about success. It was about escape. You didn't simply win, you broke free. Not from some obvious cage, but from the invisible prisons most people never dare to leave. The prisons disguised as tradition, as family loyalty, as this is just how we are. You had the courage to let go of things poisoning your spirit, even when those things carried your last name, even when they came wrapped in love, even when walking away felt like ripping out your own roots. Most people cling to what kills them because it's familiar. They stay in toxic cycles because they'd rather be accepted in dysfunction than be alone in truth. But you made the terrifying choice: growth over comfort. And not the pretty growth people applaud, but the brutal kind that isolates you, gets you whispered about, gets you asked, "Who do you think you are?" You became the one who said, "This dysfunction ends with me." Imagine being handed a family heirloom that's cursed, and you're the first to refuse to pass it on. That was you. You carried the guilt trips, the emotional blackmail, the accusations of betrayal. You put distance between yourself and people you loved, not because you hated them, but because you refused to die where they were comfortable staying. That decision didn't look glamorous, but it was revolutionary. And what did you gain? Peace, sanity, a future not written by someone else's mistakes. Most people are still choking on loyalty to pain, still worshipping traditions that destroy them, still trapped in cycles they mistake for love. But you broke the contract. You said, "Just because it's my blood doesn't mean it gets to bleed me dry." That kind of clarity doesn't just free you, it rewrites the entire lineage. You chose your soul over their story. That's why you're untouchable now. They look at you today, baffled. They don't understand how you pulled it off, how you got free, how you started winning when the weight you carried should have buried you. But the truth is simple. You let go of what they're still chained to. You gave up false belonging to build something real. You created a new bloodline, one born in healing instead of harm. That's why you're not just free, you're transformed. Number 11. You rose because you let them paint you the villain. The day you stop explaining yourself is the day their power over your name dies. You made peace with something most people can't stomach, being the villain in someone else's story. You stopped wasting your breath on people who were never interested in the truth, only their version of it. In their story, you're the one who changed. You're the one who pulled away. You're the one who stopped answering, who set boundaries, who acted different. and you let them tell it that way because you understood their story wasn't your responsibility. They wanted you tangled in endless defenses, writing essays to prove your innocence, begging them to see your side. But you didn't flinch. You let them narrate whatever lie made them comfortable, and then you did the unthinkable. You kept moving forward. That's what broke them. You didn't need to be liked. You needed to be free. Imagine standing in a courtroom where the verdict is already decided against you, and instead of pleading, you walk out and build a kingdom of your own. That was you. You stopped trying to rewrite their judgment and started writing your life. They mistook your silence for guilt when it was really discipline. They mistook your distance for arrogance when it was focus. They mistook your evolution for betrayal when it was survival. While they rallied gossip, exaggerated stories, and smeared your name, you were being refined. You were shedding an old self they could no longer recognize. You weren't hiding, you were transforming. And now, here's the twist they can't process. While they were busy burying you with rumors, you quietly bloomed. You didn't post about it. You didn't argue. You didn't explain. You just became undeniable. And that's why they're stunned today, because they invested in your downfall, but never planned for your resurrection. They wanted you to fight. They wanted your breakdown. They wanted your reaction. But you denied them the spectacle. Instead, you outlived their version of you. You didn't prove who you were to them. You proved it to yourself. And in the end, that's why you won. Because villains in their story often turn out to be heroes in their own. Number 12. You became unstoppable because you chose to begin again. The strongest kind of power is not holding on, it's having the courage to let go and start over. Your rise isn't just about what you gained, it's about what you had the guts to release. They're not haunted by your success, they're haunted by your audacity. You burned bridges they're still too afraid to cross. You buried versions of yourself they're still clinging to. You didn't just start over. You resurrected again and again until the old you was unrecognizable. Most people treat starting over like a curse. They fear it because it feels like failure. But you made starting over your weapon. You saw it for what it really is, a clean slate, a reset button, a new chance to build without the dead weight of what no longer serves you. Imagine a snake refusing to shed its skin because it's attached to the old one. It suffocates itself trying to stay the same. That's most people. But you shed again and again, and every layer made you sharper. They can't process that you walked away from things they're still begging for. Relationships, jobs, friendships, identities, even prayers you once thought were everything. You had the nerve to say, if it costs me my peace, it costs too much. That single choice made you unstoppable. Endings never broke you because you understood the secret. An ending is just a disguised beginning. They expected you to mourn loudly, to spiral, to collapse when everything fell apart. Instead, you let the old versions of you die quietly. No pity parties, no dramatic announcements, just quiet rebirths, one after another. While they clung to their past out of fear, you were brave enough to release yours out of wisdom. And here's what shakes them. Every time you stripped yourself down, you returned stronger. Every time they thought you were done, you came back lighter, sharper, more powerful than before. That's why they can't decode your success. Because it's not built on permanence. It's built on evolution. They're still loyal to what drains them. You became loyal to truth. And that's why you're untouchable now, because someone who's made peace with starting over is someone who can never be defeated. Number 13. You broke their system, because you refused to play their rigged game. the easiest way to win a crooked game is to stop playing and build your own. You were never in the race they thought you were in. While they were running laps around the same track, desperate for attention, validation, and applause, you quietly left the stadium. You weren't chasing clout. You weren't chasing numbers. You weren't polishing a mask. You were creating something real, something so rooted in truth that no spotlight could expose it, no storm could shake it. They can't figure you out because their system is collapsing and you're thriving outside of it. They spent years following the script: smile on cue, post for approval, play the role, fake the image, chase the trends. And now they're exhausted, drained, and directionless. Meanwhile, you didn't just tear up the script. You wrote a new book, and you're living it word by word. Imagine a rigged casino where the house always wins. Everyone else keeps gambling, losing their souls for chips that don't matter. But you walked out, built your own table, and stacked real wealth. That's why they panic. You never wanted to be popular. You wanted to be whole. You weren't chasing followers. You were chasing healing. You weren't addicted to performance. You were committed to peace. And here's the truth. You saw through the illusion early. You noticed the successful ones with money but no peace, followers but no direction, platforms but no soul. You understood the system was rigged. That's why you opted out. Not because you lacked ambition, but because you had vision. You were building a foundation that wouldn't collapse once the spotlight burned out. While they performed, you prepared. While they competed, you created. Now look at the contrast. They're still running in circles, burning out, desperate for applause that feels emptier every year. And you? You're thriving, not because you beat them at their game, but because you outgrew it completely. That's why they can't decode you. You never cared about winning their contest. You were building your own kingdom, and in the end, that's the only game worth playing. Number 14. They can copy your moves, but they'll never carry your fire. A mask can copy your face, but it will never copy your scars. They're studying you like scientists studying an equation, convinced that if they watch close enough, they can crack the code. They mimic your mannerisms, copy your content, even try to echo your rhythms. But what they don't understand is this: you weren't built from strategy, you were built from survival. This isn't branding, this is becoming. This isn't a formula, this is fire. They think your glow is a technique, something they can download and replicate, but glow doesn't come from mimicry. It comes from walking through fire and refusing to burn out. You didn't master some polished method. You endured a transformation that stripped away everything false until only truth remained. Imagine a blacksmith hammering metal until sparks fly, shaping it under heat and pressure. That's you. That's your essence. And they can't copy that. They want your results, but they don't want your process. They want the shine, but not the scars. They want the crown, but not the crucible. And that's why their imitation will always fall flat, because authenticity carries a weight performance can't fake. Your wisdom didn't come from books. It came from betrayal, from isolation, from nights that broke you down, and mornings that forced you to rise anyway. They can borrow your style, but they'll never inherit your spirit. Ask yourself, why does their imitation feel hollow? Because essence isn't transferable. Your grace came with a cost. Your voice carries layers of bruises they never felt. Your calm is woven with storms they never survived. They can replicate your gestures, but not your journey. They can mimic your tone, but not your transformation. The truth is simple. Fire doesn't transfer through mimicry. Fire is earned through refinement, and unless they're willing to endure the same crucible, they'll never carry what you carry. That's why no matter how hard they study you, they'll always fall short. because you didn't just pull it off. You outlasted, you overcame, you were reborn. And that's the one thing they'll never replicate, the fact that you became someone only you could become. And here's the truth, chosen one, every eye on you, every whisper behind your back, every attempt to decode your rise is proof that you've become the very thing they swore you'd never be, undeniable. You don't owe them explanations, and you don't need their approval. Your life speaks louder than their doubts ever will. If this message struck you, make sure you press that like button, subscribe for more, and drop the number 77 in the comments to claim this power as your own. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today.